And a goal to go from the 2. Toss sweep right for James White. Pucks it under the right arm. Cuts it upfield. Driving forward. Diving to the goal line. A touchdown. And a title for the Patriots.
I can't believe it.
They have completed the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. Led by the greatest quarterback.
Look at Brady.
In Super Bowl and NFL annals.
One more ring.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. That was Bob Socci on the Patriots Radio Network, 98.5 The Sports Hub with Scott Zolak. Always love to hear Socci and Zolak celebrate another Patriots championship. And this one was just unbelievable. That's the word you described this Super Bowl. Unbelievable. Down 25 points, and then they put together that comeback, and only Belichick, Brady, and company would be able to do that. And now joining us is the man that had the honor of calling the thrilling finish, and that is Bob Socci, the Patriots play-by-play voice. Bob, congratulations. Thanks so much, and how are you?
I'm doing great, Zach. Thank you. Thanks for having me, and certainly an honor to call that game, and an honor to call it with Scott Zolak, for sure. That was a remarkable experience. You said it. Unbelievable. I know that word gets overused in sports, but it's truly applicable here. Still can't believe that it took place and was a part of it.
It's really surreal, and then I can't even imagine being able to call a game like that because you're so emotionally invested with the team, working for the team, and seeing these guys on a daily basis, and you know how much this one meant to them. And when you're in the third quarter, you're down in the dumps probably, but you still got to do your job. I'm just wondering, like, when you finally get some sleep, how many times do you listen back to that one when you're in your bed or when you're on your couch with your kids? I have to imagine you keep on playing that thing over and over again.
No, frankly, I haven't.
Really?
I've heard it a few times in the last couple of days. Yeah. I generally, honestly, after every game, like one of the first things I'll try to do is download from our station site highlights of the game, and then each quarter, so that I can go back and try to critique myself. And I'll listen to it on a run or two around the offices and prepping for the next game, and just jot down a few notes of things I didn't like. And usually there are some things that stand out. I mean, for example, this last game, there were a couple of misidentifications early that I'm still upset about. But the whirlwind of calling the game, going to the after-game party, flying back and traveling the next day, and then participating in the parade, I really haven't had a chance to actually listen to much of it. I have heard a couple of different montages driving in the car and whatnot, and hear it as a bumper coming back from break on the interviews that I've done the last couple of days, which have been many. It is surreal. It doesn't seem like that's you calling that game. An amazing experience and an awesome game to be a part of.
And you've had two great Super Bowls to call, the Malcolm Butler play in Super Bowl 49 and then this one in Super Bowl 51. Does one mean a little bit more to you than the other, or are they both just still special to you?
No, they're both extremely special. I think the first one, certainly being the first, was different. Everything about that experience from the time we touched down in Phoenix until the time we landed back in Boston, and even the parade the first time around, everything was a new experience, and it was almost overwhelming. And I tried to absolutely absorb every second of that week plus. And I think one of the things that game helped to do for me personally is that in my second season as the Patriots announcer, following a legendary voice here in New England, Gil Santos, who'd called the games of the Pats for 36 years and had been a part of Adam Vinatieri's Super Bowl winning kicks in 36 and 38 and another championship in 39. It helped at least to gain credibility with Patriot fans and to kind of earn my own place in some respects next to Gil, though certainly not on par with him, but at least, for a lot of fans, I think, that game with the Seahawks gained acceptance. And therefore it was a lot different than this time around. The week in Houston was a lot different than the week out in Phoenix, that's for sure. I spent a lot of time in traffic jams and spent most of the week just looking forward to the game and getting past all the events and the peripheral press conferences and whatnot that surround the Super Bowl.
And you work with a guy who's crazy fun. He's very tough to describe, and Scott Zolak, who sometimes the play-by-play guy doesn't like when the color analyst is screaming in the background, but you just can't control Zoe. And I love what Zoe does add on the broadcast, and he really does have a great relationship with the fans with his work on 98.5, not only on the games, but also from playing it and then also on the midday show. How do you describe working with Zolak? Because I feel like here in New York, we just look at him as this crazy guy that just screams anytime the Patriots win.
Well, you described it pretty well, crazy and fun, but, beyond that, too, he's a terrific analyst. And I think, the emotion and the passion that comes through in those moments, you have to consider that this is someone who spent about a decade in the organization as a quarterback, a backup to Drew Bledsoe for most of that time. Although when he did have a chance to play, he generally played very well for the Patriots. Then got into the market first in Providence and then Boston as a sports talk host and a television commentator, eventually to become the radio analyst. So he's got strong ties to this region. He loves the Patriots, and the Patriots love him, and the Patriot fans love him. And you're right, he's developed really a cult persona with fans of his radio show, doing sports talk 4 hours a day, 5 days a week in New England. I would contend that he's probably the biggest on-air sports personality in Boston now. But beyond that, too, he's a very good analyst, and that gets overshadowed sometimes in these emotional reactions that Zoe has. I mean, given his passion and over-the-top, at times, screaming and yelling. But that's just him. That's who he is. But what takes place up to that point is really remarkable insight into the game from someone who sees the game like a quarterback does. So he's a pleasure to work with. We have a great time on and off the air. And as I said, I've learned a lot from him because he's a great analyst. So I think he combines all the best qualities that you really need in that position of someone who can break down the game. He can speak to the football junkie, but he really connects with the average fan. And then in the end, he brings that emotion and that energy on a constant basis. And I think from that standpoint, too, he's a lot like those fans who are watching the game at a bar or at the Super Bowl party in their living rooms, living and dying with the Patriots.
Bob Socci with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey, called Super Bowl 51. And we know how much that game meant for the Patriots. Robert Kraft said it very perfectly right after the game in an eloquent fashion. And Brady and Belichick, they're going to be very much by the books, but you saw the Brady commercial. You saw Danny Amendola wearing the Fire Goodell hat yesterday, and Gronkowski getting up at the rally and leading that boo chant for Roger Goodell. As someone that's been around this team and knows how much they wanted to really stick it to the commissioner, whether they admitted it publicly or not, to finally do that with all those storylines, what has that been like for you to watch?
Well, I think there's also the sweetness of winning it the way they did, being down by so much and probably, counted out by everybody, frankly, outside of themselves. I'm sure there were a few diehards who still believed there was a chance, but after the Falcons went up 28-3, it certainly looked dire for the Patriots. So I think, that part of it, too, you have to take into account. It was really almost a fitting way, considering, what they feel they've been through and what, I feel that the Patriots as an organization have experienced the last couple of years. That's how it happened. For them to be down and for, everybody outside of Patriots Nation to be relishing this rout in the works by the Atlanta Falcons, and then to come back and really demonstrate their best qualities as a football team at an organization. Because I think when it gets down to it, the bottom line is what's made the Patriots an organization that's been so great on the field, naturally led by Belichick and Brady, is exactly what we saw on Sunday night. It's a team that has talent naturally, one of the great quarterbacks, if not the greatest of all time. A great coach, in my opinion, the greatest of all time, and good players. But they also play the game the right way. It's a team of 53 and all have equal partnership in it, and all played a role in that comeback. The way they executed down the stretch and the Falcons did not. It was really, I think, a combination of one team beginning to implode and another team taking advantage and continuing to tighten the screws and increase the pressure because of the way they play the game. Then there's the attitude, the heart of guys like Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola and, any number of other players that were part of that victory and played instrumental roles. These guys who were probably afterthoughts, to put it kindly, coming out of college. And, there they were again on the game's grandest stage, once more shining, just as Amendola and Edelman in particular had done in Super Bowl 49. And again, as I say, the perseverance and having that never say die mentality, that really defines why this team is so good, because, they have this remarkable focus day in, day out. And even when they fall behind, they maintain, that focus. And we saw that poise as well from Brady and company down the stretch.
You see the comeback, and last year in the AFC Championship game, Belichick went for it, didn't take the field goal late in the game. He gets that field goal, cuts it to 16. Then you have the big Hightower fumble. They punch it in, make the stop. Some dumb play calling, in my opinion, by the Falcons. And then the next thing you know, Edelman makes that catch, and then you're in overtime, and they end up winning the game. When was the first time in that broadcast that you thought, holy cow, they're going to win this football game, Bob?
I think when they got within 8, there was a sense, they're going to come down and score. We do recall that last year against Denver in the AFC Championship, they went for 2 and did not convert in the final seconds. But still, I think there was a sense, when they're down by 8, they're going to tie this game. And then once it got to overtime and they won the coin toss, honestly, in our booth, there really wasn't a doubt. I think that the sense that the game might be turning for sure was the Hightower sack. But then on the other hand, after they kicked off to the Falcons, Atlanta gets a big play to start the next series. And you're right. I think you can question the play calling. Abetted as well, the Patriots were by a holding call, in part because of the play calling, when the Falcons were in position to kick a field goal and needed only to do that really to salt the game away. So I think you go back to the sack of from Hightower of Ryan and the fumble, thinking, okay, that's the break they needed. Now, if they could take advantage of it, they're back in this game. And they did. But then the next play, of course, after the kickoff, they're back on their heels. Julio Jones makes a sensational catch thereafter, and it looks like the Falcons are going to be in position to kick a field goal. And you're thinking, okay, the Patriots can at least force a turnover. Maybe they don't allow them to gain any more yards. And Bryant, doesn't make the field goal. They're still in it. They're only down a score. But as we know, the Falcons went backward on that series, and they didn't even have a chance to kick the field goal. But it was really a remarkable swing, because the first half, the Patriots seemed so out of sorts. Came out in the second half, looked like they might have a little momentum. They got good field position, got a 3-and-out on defense. Edelman gets a good punt return. But then they go nowhere, and the Falcons score. And at that point, I would say that was really the nadir for me, where I felt like, they may not come back and win this game. And in all probability, they won't. So prepare yourself, resign yourself to the possibility that the Falcons are going to win it, and you just hope that the Patriots can come back and make it close. But obviously, they did more than that.
Bob Socci with us right now, wrapping up with the man that called Super Bowl 51 for the Patriots Radio Network. You see James White, 14 catches, had an unbelievable game out of the backfield. We've seen that before with New England running backs. Back in the Super Bowl the last time in Houston, Kevin Falk was very clutch late. Not a marquee name. Shane Vereen in the last Super Bowl, Super Bowl 49, had played an imperative role for the Patriots. How does Belichick just continue? And even look at the defensive side of the ball, some of the guys that he plugged and played this year. How does he continue to get these guys that people don't expect a lot out of and just have these all-time great performances like we saw on Sunday night?
I think it's a great question, and I think it's a simple answer that really doesn't cover it all. That I always say is that I think he puts guys in a position where they allow them to succeed, and they don't put them in a position where they're likely to fail. And in the case of James White, he's a guy they liked a lot coming out of Wisconsin, a mid-round pick, a smaller back, but somebody who's pretty well schooled in that Wisconsin offense and a lot of the nuances of being a running back at the pro level, pass protection, being a good pass catcher. And he played in the same backfield as Melvin Gordon, came out of Wisconsin, was really, in essence, redshirted his first year. You mentioned the performance by Vereen. White wasn't even active for Super Bowl 49, but he bided his time and he learned. Great attitude. He really struggled, though, the last couple of years to run the ball. You didn't see him, pick up tough yards inside. And he was used as a pass catcher. And then this year kind of had a breakout with 60-plus catches, only the third back for the Patriots ever to have that many receptions. But coming into the Super Bowl, you still figured, okay, LeGarrette Blount, they're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to try to run the ball with Blount against that Falcon defense, which had really struggled against the run all year long. And Deion Lewis is the guy who's going to be that versatile back catching the ball and running it for the Patriots, who figures to be, the next in line. So if you were to pick the running backs, in order of most likely to least likely, James White probably falls third on a list of 5 in that game in terms of like the most likely to shine. But he picked up some tough yards running inside. He had a couple of touchdown rushes, including the game winner. He had a touchdown catch. He also had, of course, a 2-point play for the Patriots. So I just think about, White in his case kind of typifies the way they develop players. They accentuate the strengths. They ask them to do what they do well. They're very good at evaluating what guys can do in their offense. And I think when they get guys as well from other organizations, like on defense, like a Kyle Van Noy, they put him in a position where, he best utilizes his talents. And in Detroit, he really had a tough time finding his niche there. And here was a second-round pick from the Lions. They gave away to the Patriots for next to nothing. He winds up being a starter on a Super Bowl team and has a role, part of a sack that was very key late in that game. You look at some of the players they draft, they generally have had some success with their first-rounders, but second-round, third-round picks, sometimes those guys really haven't panned out for them. But then you work your way back to the mid to late rounds, and, boy, they've hit a lot of diamonds in the rough, including Trey Flowers. The length of his arms, the leverage, the way he plays, had a huge Super Bowl. As a guy that was really kind of overlooked coming out of the draft that was rich with edge rushers, and Trey Flowers has turned out to be a terrific second-year player.
And no question about that. Bob, in closing, I got 3 minutes left. Everyone tracked this Brady-Goodell stuff, but behind the scenes there was a little bit more motivation for Tom Brady just because how close he is with his mom and the emotional impact with his mom not at a full percentage of health. That was, as someone that was in Houston and seeing how emotional Tom got about talking about his parents, it was very powerful and very special. Just how about the emotions of Brady? And I don't know if you saw this on Showtime last night, Edelman going up to Brady and says, hey, let's go win this one for your mom right before overtime started.
I did see that and hear that, and it is interesting. One of the things about this past week in Houston that was definitely different from 2 years ago is that Tom was not quite an open book, but he certainly opened the door to his emotions, and that's something that he hasn't done for the most part here in at least in recent memory. And I think that people across the country got a glimpse at Tom Brady, the human being, not just the celebrity who lives a perceived lifestyle of the rich and the famous, when really he's seemingly just a good guy. He's a good family guy who also happens to be rich and famous and married to a rich and famous supermodel. But, at the core, he always says that he's still the kid who grew up in San Mateo. And this past week when a 7-year-old boy asked him on Monday at media night who his hero was, and he said, my dad, and broke into tears and lost his composure for a moment. I think, people said, this isn't just the guy who's always speaking as a brand. He's a real human being. And that's the guy, honestly, that, from every account inside the locker room, the teammates see on a regular basis. My experience in the interactions that I've had with Tom is he's a very nice guy. And probably about as grounded as one could be, considering his stature. As not only a great athlete and an all-timer at quarterback, but as someone who lives a life in the public eye. His mother was on the field after the game. We saw a picture on Instagram of Tom and his dad kissing his mother the day before the game. So as it played out all week long, not only Patriot fans, but I think all of America who followed the story had a chance, to experience a bit of that emotional journey with Tom. The ups and downs of the last couple of years, going through Deflategate and trying to maintain the high road as he did, and yet at the same time, dealing with an illness afflicting his mom, with whom he's extremely close.
Well, Bob, great stuff, great call, and I'm sure that you need some sleep, so we'll let you go get that sleep. Thank you.
Zach, I appreciate it. Thank you.